Hi, I'm Justin Diamond, and today I'm going to read Chapter 2 of my as yet unpublished novel, Giant Special Tokyo Love and Game. I know I started the story in Tokyo and all, but let me rewind a bit and tell you how I got there. It started in college. My schedule never worked out perfectly. No matter how hard I tried, there was always some kind of hours-long block of time that I had to kill in between classes. It didn't matter that I lived close enough to bike to the university. It simply didn't make sense to go home. Leave campus once I'd arrived, and I'd fall into a black hole of World of Warcraft and pot smoking. Sure, I'd make it to the next class, but I'd hate how petty the break felt, trying to learn with a wrong attitude. I eventually worked out that I had to stay on campus. One trip to campus per day was all I could stomach. At first I tried the library. Sure, they had all the books you could read, same for DVDs, but the environment was so quiet, it just didn't feel right. I could have hit up one of the many coffee shops all around campus, but that would cost money, and I had to take a group of students from the English school where I worked part-time on a field trip to a coffee shop later that day, after class. Out of boredom, not necessity, I stopped by the student health building and grabbed a free envelope of condoms. They were black condoms, tuxedos by their brand, thick and durable, but most importantly, free. Picking up envelopes full of condoms on a regular basis might have been wishful thinking on my part, but I was a sucker for free. So instead of going home or spending money, I went to Turlington Plaza, the heart of campus. It was the one spot where almost every student at the entire university was guaranteed to walk through during their day. It was the place where small armies of people passing out flyers were always stationed. It was where various clubs met, cheerleaders cheered, and students inexplicably played ultimate frisbee among the crowd. Along one side of Turlington Plaza, they had just installed permanent concrete tables. It used to be that students groups would have to schlep their own tables out there whenever they wanted to promote an event. I went to one of the free tables and occupied it. From my backpack, I produced a tournament-sized chessboard complete with chess clock. For those of you who don't know what a tournament-sized chessboard looks like, it's made out of canvas so you can roll it up and fit it into a bag that a folding board wouldn't fit in. The kind that was an off-white color with green instead of the traditional black and white squares. It was the kind of board that nobody would have trouble looking at, no matter how bad their vision was. The pieces were weighted. They wouldn't easily tip over or fall with a light gust of wind. Got game? That was the finishing touch. A sign I had printed on my computer. Got game. At the time there were a series of milk commercials that I really liked, despite hating milk and never buying it. The milk commercial slogan was, of course, got milk? My favorite was the one where a man accidentally stepped in front of a car, dies and goes to heaven. He finds himself sitting in front of a table with the most delicious looking cookies in front of him. He starts to eat and for a moment he is in heaven. Then he goes to the fridge to wash it all down with milk. The fridge is packed with a wall of ice-cold milk boxes, but when he goes to pour himself a glass, there's nothing. Every milk carton in the refrigerator is empty. In the final frame of the commercial, the man asks, "Where am I?" That's the throwback to passerby in Turlington Plaza would remember, as they read my sign. I looked at myself as a true chess player. I didn't care about actually going to the chess club, taking time out of my schedule for chess. What was the fun in that? I wanted to meet new people and I had time to kill. I set up my board and sign and played chess with all takers. If they wanted to use the clock, we used the clock. If they didn't, then we didn't. I met a lot of people that way. After a few games with people who clearly were not my worthy opponents, I packed up my things and went to class. After that, it was off to my part-time job at the English school. That day, I was taking a group of English as a second language adult students to a local coffee shop. I chose the one just across the street from the university, mainly because it was closer to my apartment than Starbucks. I was always on the lookout for Japanese people. Japan fascinated me so, and I was thinking about maybe teaching English there after I graduated. But there was no Japanese people in that group. In fact, there was only one Asian man. The Asian women of the group were all older, grandmotherly figures. I gravitated towards the man. The rest of the group, mainly Venezuelans, sort of kept to themselves. "I'm Korean," the man told me as we walked into the coffee shop. It was at the edge of the commercial district, surrounded by houses and apartments on three sides. The coffee shop used to be a large house. They had many small tables scattered throughout, but no large table to accommodate our group. We wound up splitting off into several smaller groups. In the corner was a game table. Several boxed board games were stacked on top of it, as well as a pile of chessboards in a clear plastic container filled to the brim with loose chess pieces. "Got game?" I asked, when he got a puzzled look on his face. I quickly added, "Would you like to play a game of chess?" "Chess," he repeated. I motioned towards the boards, but he still didn't get it, so I simply grabbed a board and the bin filled with pieces and brought them to a table. "Chess," I said. "Oh yes, in Korea we have similar Korean chess." "Cool," I said, setting up the board already. He didn't help. How could he? He'd never played chess before. Soon I was explaining how the pieces moved to him, teaching him all kinds of useless vocabulary words that he would more than likely never use. Words like diagonal and chess jargon like fork and pin. I wasn't a very good English teacher. "Got game?" Soon we were playing. I let him take back a couple of moves, and like most beginners, he was eager to trade, eager to simplify the board. This secretly was my plan, my strong point. I'd played chess long enough to consider the endgame my specialty. It may look simpler than a board filled with pieces, but when the board was empty, rest assured I'd already worked out the win several moves back. But the Korean man made a mistake. Further back than I thought he would. I wound up beating him using my bishop to fork his king. He resigned by saying, "Okay," with just that right tone of voice. I felt proud about the victory. More proud than I should for having beat a foreigner at his first game of chess, but what can I say? I love victory. I love it every time she comes to me, no matter how little she makes me work for it. But this Korean guy, he sure had a way of taking it back from me. He said, "We have game like this in Korea." "A game like this in Korea?" I corrected. I was, after all, working as his English teacher. He nodded his head in acknowledgement, but didn't repeat the correct sentence back like he should have. I let it slide. "But this game for simple-minded people," he said. I scoffed. This Korean man, whose name I can't recall, was really trying me in a way that I'd never had an Asian student do before. It was a diss any way you sliced it. Chess for simple-minded people? It was the kind of idea that was disarming to me. Here I was, some naive college kid who thought he was hot shit. I thought I was some kind of smarty-pants intellectual hipster for taking on all comers at the University of Florida campus, armed only with chessmen. And here was some Korean man, whose name I can't recall, telling me that chess was for the simple-minded. "Got game? What do you play? I mean, what game do the smart people play then?" I asked him. "Baduk," he said, and he pronounced it funny, like the foreign word it was. The way he said it, I had trouble understanding if the word began with a B or a P. Baduk. "What's that?" I asked. He wasn't able to show me then or there, nor did he give me much of an explanation. But a few days later, the two of us wound up in the computer lab at the English school. The man sat down and did an internet search for Baduk. We didn't come up with much, but with the two of us working together and a quick eye on my part, I eventually realized that Baduk was commonly called in English Go. It seemed like a simple name for such a complex game. Simple names are hard to search for because they get mixed up with so many other things that use the word go in the traditional sense. But once we learned that the proper English language name of the game was Go, we learned that you could play on Yahoo Games. I had an account and signed in so that the Korean man could teach me what this thinking man's chess was all about. At first, the Go board looked simple enough. It was a grid with a few dots on it. Nothing special. His opponent placed black stones onto the grid. He placed white stones. Not much to it. Except I had trouble understanding why they were putting the stones where they were. For the first few moves, I was interested. I was intrigued. Further into the game, I started to get bored. He is frustration, the Korean man said, pointing to where the most recent stones had been placed. This got me a little excited about the game again. It was still hard to say what was happening, but now there were so many black and white stones on the board that they started to take on this strange quality, as if they were alive. They looked like two forms of microscopic life in a petri dish, growing, moving, battling each other. At the end of the series of moves, a large number of black stones vanished. Then his opponent resigned. Thank you for showing me Go. I'm going to check it out. Later, I told the Korean man. Thank you, he said, with his accent. Got game?